All right, man, y'all asked for part 2, so here it is. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hop in the comment section, man. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we post a new video. I really appreciate it. Now let's get into it.
It's the bottom line is it's more white people than it is black people. And so if more black people are not getting loans disproportionately, it seems you only want to apply the disproportion to the conversation when it benefits your talking point.
I'm not sure you understood.
Which is why they said.
I'm not sure you understood.
No, I understood.
I'm not sure you understood my point. That's why I mentioned in 1995 when 186 black people who were not getting loans filed a class action lawsuit claiming that they were denied the loan because of racism. Citicorp said, okay, here are your loans. The reason I wasn't giving you the loans is because we're afraid you weren't going to be able to pay them back.
I'm not talking about
Fast forward, they weren't able to pay them back, which proves the Citicorp's point.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about
I know you're
that.
not. Because inconvenient.
I'm talking about your response to Envy when you said more white people get approved for loans.
Since you like numbers, Washington Post said black Americans have the highest denial rates for purchase and refinance of loans, according to Home Mortgage Disclosures Act.
Because of their credit score.
And all credit scores are the same. 15% of Hispanic loan applicants were denied, compared with about 11% of white and 10% of Asian applicants with same credit scores. And that's Washington Post, since you love numbers so much, and I know you do love numbers. That's coming from the Washington Post. That's 2023, not 1995.
I can show you a study that says the opposite.
And that right there is going to be the problem, because once you hit somebody with facts, or you hit somebody with you know, the research or the study that you find, you know, and their findings, then they can respond and say, well, I can show you somebody who did the same research or did the same project elsewhere and they found, you know, different results, right? And at that point, it's just going to be a circular argument, and you're never going to be able to come to, you know, a middle ground on what it is that you're talking about. But as somebody who actually did a study myself, hop in the comment section, I'll link it below. One of the first in Arkansas history, actually, as it pertains to fair housing laws, you know, to see if there was redlining and other predatory lending practices that was taking place in the 21st century. We found that there actually was, despite what a lot of people may you know, believe. And in this particular case, if you listen, Mr. Larry was saying, well, it's because of their credit score. And the truth is, he's right. A lot of times, many so-called black people and other races as well, but especially a lot of so-called black people will go into banks with really bad credit scores, really low credit scores, still expecting to get, you know, loans for their houses and other things, and they're denied, right? White people are denied as well. It's just, but here's where the disconnect is coming in. The study that Envy just gave was saying that, I think he said the Washington Post released a study that showed that even when somebody has the same credit score, it's still showing that black Americans are facing, you know, denial rates at a disproportionate, you know, rate compared to other races, right? And so what I can say to that is, as predatory as that may even sound, sometimes there could be other factors as well outside of just the credit score, right? As far as work history, and a plethora of other things. But that on its own does sound very sketchy. I'd have to look at that study myself to be able to understand more. But I just want to say that it could be other factors as well outside of just your credit score.
Let me ask you a question,
yeah,
Mr. Elder. Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and I'm pretty sure everybody who just caught a RICO with him in Georgia, they all had fathers, and they still ended up in jail. How did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very misleading question by Charlemagne. I know what he's doing there. Nobody ever made the argument, man, that if you have a father, then that means you can't ever do anything wrong. You'll never go to jail. You won't commit crimes. No, it just means that if you don't have a father, you're much more likely to commit crimes. But Charlemagne already understands that what Charlemagne is doing is very sneaky. He's trying to inadvertently take the conversation in a particular direction so that he can basically bash Trump.
Nobody said if you have a father, you won't go to jail.
Exactly.
Nobody said if you didn't have a father, you were going to jail. My father never.
But guess what you did say, Mr. Elder? I'm sorry, respectfully.
May I answer his question?
Guess what you did say.
May I answer his question?
Let him finish his statement, Ted.
Okay.
My father never knew his biological father. He got thrown out of the house when he was 8, when he was 13 years old, 8th grade dropout, Jim Crow South, Athens, Georgia. Fast forward, my dad cleaned toilets, 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets when I was growing up. Went to night school to get his GED, and then after that, he went to night school to learn how to operate a small restaurant. Age of 47, my dad saves his nickels and dimes from his job, starts a small restaurant near downtown LA. Fast forward, he retires in his 80s. He owned that restaurant. He owned property next door, plus the house that's still in our family. Not too shabby for somebody who did not know his biological father. It's not a death sentence. You still have choices. It's just much more difficult to raise a child on your own. Even Tupac Shakur said, "I know for a fact." Tupac, excuse me. I know for a fact. Had I had a father, I would have been more confident. I would have been more disciplined. End of quote.
Well, how did all those white men end up in jail when they still had fathers? The Trumps and the Giuliani. I'm just asking the question. How did they end up in jail?
That's a Charlemagne, bro. You look silly and you don't look very intellectual when you ask questions like that. First of all, when you asked it the first time, I felt like you was just being misleading and being disingenuous. And then he just explained very eloquently the answer to the question, stating that we're not saying that it's you're automatically going to commit crimes if you don't have a father, or you're automatically going to be successful if you do have a father. It just means that you're far more likely to commit crimes, far more likely to be unsuccessful in life when you don't have a father in the home. He just explained it to you, and yet you still circle back and ask the question like a 6-year-old. It's like, bro, what are you doing? I'm not gonna say you make so-called black people look bad, but you just don't look very intelligent when you do things like that, bro. I just don't understand that point.
Because some people commit crimes.
No, sir. Stop. My apologies for interrupting you earlier. I just couldn't stomach the answer that I knew you were going to say.
Couldn't stomach the answer?
Yeah, I couldn't stomach, because your actual answer to Trump being what was happening to him with the indictments, you actually said that the system was doing it. You said there was a 2-tier system. This is your words.
That's right.
That it was a 2-tier system. So when it came to Trump, all of a sudden you now believe in this systematic thing that's happening to Trump. But then when it happens to black people,
but it's not about race. It's not about race. I didn't
ask you that. I asked you. Remember, I made it easy for you, and I took race out of it. Remember, I said I'm just talking about the system. I'm just talking about the system.
If you want to ask me whether I believe Donald Trump is being treated the same way as Joe Biden and is being treated the same way as Hillary Clinton, all of these people are white. All these people are white. There's a double standard.
Well,
Mr. Elder, you didn't hear my question.
You said that
you didn't hear my question.
You said some people commit crimes, so you do believe that Trump, Giuliani, they committed a crime.
Well, before you even respond to that, let me just say, this is my problem. I don't even know what his answer is going to be to this question, but that's my problem with conservatives. And I made a video on this as well about how when I was first tapping into the conservative, circles and being a part of those conversations, or the conservative community, if you will, I really thought that I was a conservative. And then I immediately saw the double standards on their side as well. I saw the hypocrisy on their side as well. As I've said many times on this channel, I'm going to continue to say it. Both liberals and conservatives are hypocrites. It just depends. You have to get to a certain particular topic to find where the hypocrisy comes in. In this particular case, 2 words: Donald Trump. Donald Trump can't do much of any wrong to any conservative. And it kills me, or I should say, to most conservatives, especially the most popular conservative talking heads that you find on social media. The man can't do anything wrong. If Biden, Barack, or anybody on the left are charged for anything, right, like Joe Biden's son, and they can't stop posting about this man, his laptop, and the things that he did or did not do, and all this, that, and the third, then if it was Barack Obama or Biden in Trump's position right now, they'd be all over it like white on rice, and we know they would. But because it's Donald Trump, all of a sudden now, he's being set up. It's a scam, right? It's because of the things that he stands for, and he's going against the system. Where did this system thing come from, bro? Because according to y'all, systemic racism does not exist, right? So in other words, there is not a system, right, that has been set in place that disproportionately affects so-called black people, black and brown people, in a negative manner. Y'all say that does not even exist. But all of a sudden, when it comes to somebody who you all support in your conservative circles, and that this person is being charged left and right, catching RICO charges from all these different states, all of a sudden, he can't do wrong and the system is against him. This is where the double standards come from, bro. You people are hypocrites, man.
I don't know.
But you just said some people commit crimes.
I said some people committed a crime. I didn't say Donald Trump committed a crime. If you ask me specifically whether I believe Donald Trump committed a crime, I don't.
I don't. Specifically about those people and why they ended up in jail, and they all got fathers.
Well, Donald Trump is not in jail.
Well, he got indicted.
Yeah, he got indicted. That's a far cry from being in jail.
Why did he get indicted?
Well, he got arrested, is what I'm saying. He's going to get arrested.
He's been arrested. He got indicted, in my opinion, because the DOJ has a double standard. They let Hillary pass, for example. She clearly violated the Espionage Act by having an unsecured server in her basement. She paid for the Steele dossier. She destroyed 30,000 emails that were under subpoena.
So the point that you're making is now he's making a silly rebuttal, right? Just like Charlemagne just said something that made him look not so intelligent. Well, Mr. Elder, respectfully, you're doing the same thing now. How? Because so basically the point that you're making is they did wrong and nothing happened to them when Donald Trump allegedly did wrong, or when the people around him allegedly did something wrong that Donald Trump was involved in, allegedly. He was indicted. But when other people do wrong, that's the argument that an 8-year-old would make, right? I got in trouble, but they didn't get in trouble. No. The point is are you wrong for what you did? Stop talking about other people. This is the same argument you make to black people. Stop pointing at other people for your shortcomings and worrying about what's happening in their life. Look in the mirror and look at yourself. What did you do wrong? What could you do better? So keep that same energy when it comes to Donald Trump. The man's being charged all over the place by all these different people. Everybody's setting him up. Has he done nothing wrong? Right? Should he not be indicted by anybody for anything ever? This is my problem. That's the double standards here. Come on, bro. Wrong is wrong. Don't just point to other people and say they didn't get caught, and that's the reason why Donald Trump shouldn't get in trouble. Other people aren't getting in trouble, so?
And she got a wrist slap. And Donald Trump is now being indicted, I think, for the 4th time. It's unfair.
Right.
Black people been telling y'all
Life
how corrupt
isn't
the
fair.
FBI is for a long time.
And the FBI has been corrupt. There was COINTEL, the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover also wiretapped MLK under Robert Kennedy, a Democrat Attorney General, Malcolm X, lots of things. Right. And I find it interesting how the same people who criticize the FBI historically are now defending the FBI because they're going after Donald Trump.
Oh, we're not defending the FBI.
I didn't say you were. I said some of the same people.
We're just looking and saying, damn, finally.
What's your thoughts with
Justice
Florida?
across the board.
And you see that they're trying to take our history out of these history books and not trying to teach our history. What's your thoughts?
I find it.
Well, before, once again, I'm going to stop pausing, I promise y'all, but I'm constantly just continuously catching things here. He just said that he finds it funny that the same people who complained about the FBI is not defending the FBI. Well, let's talk about conservatives, bro, because as somebody who's not a conservative or a liberal, I'm right here in the middle. I'm calling hypocrisies on both sides. You're the same person who, in this interview, you've went to Barack Obama and things that Barack Obama did or did not do, did and did not say, which he's going to talk about a little bit further as well, that is in alignment with the same things that you value. So when it benefits you, you're going to also quote people or organizations that you wouldn't typically agree with. So you're doing the same thing that they're doing, bro. Come on, man.
Interesting that the Democrats are the ones complaining about Florida. This is a party of slavery, party of Jim Crow, the party of the KKK, the party of the Southern Manifesto,
That's a lot of systemic racism.
the party of Dred Scott, the party that I said earlier destroyed the nuclear intact family, and the party that is opposing school choice. And now they want to lecture Florida on making sure the proper history of slavery is taught. I don't know anybody who's defending slavery. Anybody. Not Ron DeSantis. He's not defending.
People benefited from slavery.
Actually, you're talking about one line. You're talking about one line in about 127 pages of the study, and it is a line that was repeated almost verbatim in the associated in the advanced placement African American course that the DeSantis administration refused to use because of all of the sexual stuff that was in it. It's basically the same thing that was in the advanced placement African American courses, and now because it's in that, all of a sudden the governor is accused of somehow defending slavery. He's not doing anything of the sort.
What did you think about that?
Well, sir, you were actually one that defended slavery. In your comments, you said that, like it or not, slavery was legal in response to reparations. So it's you that was defending slavery, correct?
Defending it and saying that it's illegal are two very different things. Slavery, unfortunately.
Well, that was your response. That was your response into if reparations should happen. So your response to that was, like it or not, slavery was legal, and one would think that was a defense on those who were asking.
Well, you would think.
Fair enough. I think that's also a great point. I think it is a little bit of a stretch to say that he's defending it, but I think that still should be classified. Some people would classify that as defending slavery. You making a valid point, which he did. Mr. Elder made a valid point that slavery was legal during that time, so it was a norm. It's what a lot of people did. So can you knock some people for doing unethical things if that's what you're raised into as being the norm? All right, one can make the argument that you can't necessarily fault everybody. You can still fight to end the very thing that's unethical. But if it's the norm, you know what I'm saying, everybody's doing it, then that was a completely different time than what we're living in now. But to be fair, at the same time, you are defending it. Technically, you're defending it by making that point, bro. So she's not lying about that.
It was a defense, but it is not a defense. Unfortunately, slavery has been part and parcel of human history from the very beginning. Asians enslaved Asians, whites enslaved whites, blacks enslaved blacks, Native Americans enslaved Native Americans. This is a culture, the Western civilization, that had a revulsion against it. We had a civil war against it. And we ought to applaud ourselves for doing something about this. This is a flawed country. It's moving forward. It's becoming more perfect all the time. Today, if you are born and raised in America, if you finish high school, presumably one where you can read, write, and computer grade level, which is why I support school choice, Don't have a kid before you're 20. Get married first. Get a job. Keep a job. Don't quit it until you get another job. And avoid the criminal justice system. You will not be poor. If you don't follow that formula, there's a good chance you will be.
You know, the first GOP debate is coming up, and you didn't qualify, and I saw you writing.
Well, you didn't say I've not yet not qualified. It's not until August 21.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw you writing the op-ed that the Republican National Committee has rigged the rules of the game by instituting a set of criteria that is so onerous. What is it? Onerous. Onerous and poorly designed.
I mispronounced Tupac, so you mispronounced onerous.
That's
So we're even.
You are really fatty, Mr.
And he said, and poorly designed that only establishment and billionaire candidates are guaranteed to be on stage. Explain to us why that system hurts people.
Well, I ran for governor of California. I got 3.5 million votes. It seems to me that made me credible. The RNC is requiring us to have 1% or 40,000 individual donors. In 2020, the DNC required you to have 1% or a certain number of donors. For reasons that I don't quite understand, the RNC is requiring you to have both of them. One of the candidates in this race is a multimillionaire. He's offered a $20 gift certificate if you give $1. Another one is offering a free, air quotes, country western concert if you give $1. Another one is giving you a commission if you are a prospective donor to go out and get other prospective donors. It seems to me that corrupts the whole process. I'm doing it the old-fashioned way, Charlemagne. I'm asking people to support me and go to my website, larryelder.com, and give me at least $1. If I get $1 from 40,000 individuals, I will be up on that stage in Milwaukee on August 23. And when I get up there, game on, hold my beer.
So why is this system? Is this system holding you back?
Go ahead.
Would you say it's a system holding you back?
I would say it's unfair. It seems to me this early, the voters ought to decide this. I mean, in 2016, there were 17 or 18 Republican candidates. Now there's 13.
Now, how would you feel, Mr. Elder, if one came up to you right now or was to respond to you right now and say, what system? What are you talking about this word unfair? You're a conservative. What is this word you speak of? Right? Work hard. Stop talking about what's unfair. Stop using this word system. What is this word system? This is a myth. These things don't exist. Are you saying there's a conglomerate of people that has orchestrated, some sort of system in place in which it does not benefit you, or you're not able to thrive in a fair way? Life isn't fair. Now all of a sudden you're sounding like a liberal. Now would you look at that?
Somehow, some way, our republic survived, and we could survive with 13 candidates. I don't know why they have all this rule to eliminate certain people at this point.
Those systems,
but rather than
those systems can hold you back no matter how hard you work, right?
I'm going to say, but rather than whine about it, my goal is to get on as many shows as I can, like yours. Urge people to go to larryelder.com, give at least $1, even if you want somebody else. Don't you think it's wise for us to talk about the epidemic of fatherlessness, the lie that America remains systemically racist, and the need for school choice?
The hypocrisy in that statement, for you to make one point and then completely say something different, that's just crazy to me what you just did there. Technically, you are complaining. Otherwise, how would people know that you felt the way that things are unfair and that there's a system that is not allowing you to get things done the old-fashioned way? We wouldn't know unless you had done some complaining. Right? Now, you can argue other people complain a lot more, but that's still complaining, bro.
In public high schools in Baltimore, 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. Are you kidding me? 53 public high schools in Chicago, 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party is opposed to school choice, while the party elites, whether it's Barack Obama or Gavin Newsom or Joe Biden, have their own kids in private school. It is wrong, and we need to talk about that.
Larry Elder, why would somebody from our community vote for you, or why should they vote for you? Why should a black person vote for you?
Because I'm telling the truth, and the truth oftentimes is unpleasant. It's not pleasant for me to be called the black face of white supremacy, as the LA Times did. It's not pleasant for me to be accused of being anti-black, as Tavis Smiley once called me, because I don't support reparations. By the way, Barack Obama never supported reparations. Nobody called him anti-black.
See what he just did there? He just quoted, which he's done this like 3 times already in this interview, where he's quoted, I talked about a little bit in part 1, he's quoted Barack Obama now 3 times. This is the man he does not agree with. This is the man he despises a lot of the things Barack Obama stood for. But whenever it was something that he aligned with Barack Obama, he's quoting Barack Obama. But yet he just complained that he finds it interesting that the left is now, agreeing with certain things with the FBI, even though they complained about the FBI for so many years, where you're doing the same thing. And I don't want to sound like a broken record. I just wanted to point that out. But I also wanted to say that it's going to be very difficult for him to get the vote of the black community for a few reasons. One of them is because he's telling the truth, right? He's telling the truth that a lot of us are not accountable. A lot of us don't want to look in the mirror, right? A lot of us are irresponsible. A lot of us are reckless. A lot of us are having sex outside of marriage, right? A lot of us are living just very irresponsible lives. And you're going to hurt a lot of people's feelings, and you're not going to have a lot of Demetriuses out there who are going to hear the truth. It's going to sting. It's going to hurt. And I'm going to respect you for it, and I'm going to vote for you. You're not going to have a lot of people like that in our community. But here's another reason why he's not going to get the so-called black vote. And he knows that he's not going to get the black vote, and he's not up here for the black vote. Despite being on the Breakfast Club, that's not why he's there, and I'm going to tell you why. He's also not going to get the black vote because he is very disingenuous with his language. He doesn't do enough acknowledging. You can have two things can be true at the same time, bro. Like, you can tell black people to be more responsible as we need to be, more accountable as we need to be, more hardworking as we need to be, right? More family oriented as we need to be, more God fearing as we need to be. But you can also talk about the system in which, or the barriers in which, we don't have to use the word racist. We don't have to use the word racism. The system in which, the barriers in which, the obstacles in which a lot of so-called black and brown people have been complaining for years about having to overcome, things that they've been noticing, things that they've faced, right? You can talk about both of those things, but as a conservative, you don't do that because in your mind, systemic racism and those things play absolutely no role. You can make the point that it doesn't play a big enough role to where it holds you back, which I would agree with, from being any type of successful. But you're out your mind because you're making the point that there is none of that at all that exists anymore at all. You mean to tell me all of it is going away? Let me get this straight. You agree that racism exists. You agree that systemic racism used to exist, but it doesn't exist anymore. So all of a sudden, you believe in that, but the people who are in power, which are so-called white people, a lot of them, doesn't mean all white people are racist. It's not the point that I'm making. But you're going to make the point that a lot of these people that are in positions of power are not racist when it comes to the hiring process, when it comes to the work environment, when it comes to certain policies and things that they set in place. Come on, bro. Like, you sound crazy. At the same point, you sitting up here talking about the system is against Trump, though, because of his ideologies, not because of his skin color. But you're talking about the system is in place because of you and the way that you're trying to run, and you're not able to benefit from it. It just don't make sense. But the last point I want to make real fast about Mr. Elder that I find very disingenuous is that he knows that he's not going to get the black vote. He's not up here at the Breakfast Club for the black vote. I think he's up here to just spread his popularity. He understands, so he have people around him at 71 years old that's explained to him, if he goes up there, this will go viral online. He knows that so-called black people are the minority in this country. He knows that so-called white people are going to relate way more with his message than so-called black people are. And that's most of the people in this country. That's who he's trying to appeal to. He's not trying to appeal to so-called black people. If you have some so-called black people that like what he's saying and vote for him, all right, cool, it benefits him. But other than that, that's not what he's up here for, and he's not sneaky. Typical politician behavior.
We need to talk about what's going on. What's going on is the breakdown of the family. And most of the things we complain about downstream, whether it's crime or whether it's bad schools, the genesis is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and we don't talk enough about it.
Do you agree that our community is hit harder with a lot of things that you just said, whether it is racism, whether it is getting loans, whether it is getting entrepreneurship, whether it is education, whether it is all those things? You do understand that and agree with that, correct?
I do, but much of it is either self-inflicted or because of policies that we have supported, Democrats that we have supported. I wrote a book it's coming out in October. It's called As Goes California, My Mission to Rescue the Golden State and Save the Nation. It's about the one-party rule in California. California has supermajorities of Democrats in the Senate and in the House. And as a result, our schools are near the bottom. People are leaving California for the very first time. We have the highest state income tax in the country. The average price of a home in California costs 175% above the national average, all because of these left-wing policies that are hurting the very people, black and brown people living in the inner city, that people on the left claim that they care about.
And the point that she was trying to make earlier was that who is it that are in charge of these policies, whether it's Democrats or Republicans? The point that she's making is, historically, it has been mostly white people. Again, not saying all white people are racist, absolutely. But the point that she's making is the people that have been in positions of power have been mostly white people. And at one point in time, all white people. They're the ones who put these policies in place that just so, coincidentally, disproportionately affects black and brown people that are living in these ghettos. By the way, ghettos were created by these policies and these laws that were set in place many years ago that have trickle-down effects on communities, bro. Like, I just don't understand how that's an argument. Everybody knows that exists, but somehow we're getting to that point in completely different ways. You're making the very point. You're just saying it's Democrats.
Do you think slavery was self-inflicted? Or do you think Jim Crow segregation was self-inflicted?
Right.
Or do you think,
slavery was self-inflicted? Of course, it wasn't self-inflicted, but there are a lot of people have bloody hands in slavery. Mm-hmm. For example, slavery could not have existed had it not been for African chieftains who were selling black slaves captured in battle or captured through raids and selling them to European and Arab slavers. It could not have existed without that. So everybody has dirty hands here. That's why reparations is such a foolish thing. If you're going to get reparations from the 5% or so of white people that have some sort of generational connection to slavery, and that's all there is, then you need to go back to Africa and get money from African countries that were involved in the slave trade and in the Arab slave trade. And by the way, the Arab slave trade was even worse than the European slave trade. 90% rate of attrition, often making men and women walk on barefoot across the Sahara, and the men were castrated. Only about
So if they go after the money from the other countries, then would you agree that it would be okay to go after the money from America? Is that your problem?
When are you going to stop with this? Everybody has a grievance.
I just asked a simple question.
I'm answering your question. There's no end. There'll be no end to this because slavery has been part of human history from the very beginning.
Okay, now I've let you talk. Sir, I've let you talk. And every time I talk, you begin to talk and then you say, let you finish. So I asked you a very simple question. You said, if you're going to go after it in America, go after it in Africa. So if we all agree to go after it in Africa, will you then agree to go after it in America? It's just a simple question. Yes or no?
No, I won't because it's a waste of time. We ought to be spending our time on education.
Next question.
Okay. You told me that I cut you off. Then I tried to answer your question. You won't let me finish.
Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you. It's a waste of time. We ought to be talking about working hard, investing in ourselves. Right now, as we speak, there are Haitians in Haiti lining up for a lottery to come into this country. Why? Because it is the land of the free and the home of the brave. You can go from nothing to something faster in America than any other country in all of human history. We ought to be talking about that. Let me just, one more point.
I agree with that, but what's wrong with talking about both? I agree with that, though.
1997, Time magazine and CNN hooked up together to do a poll on what black teenagers and white teenagers felt about racism. Mm-hmm. And both of them were asked, is racism a major problem in America? Both of them said yes. But then Time and CNN asked this question of the black teenagers. Is racism a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life? This is 1997. 89% of them said small problem or no problem in my own daily life. In fact, twice as many blacks said failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism.
That was 1997.
1997. Look it up.
Now, I do agree that it's a bigger problem. And both of these things can be true. I'm not going to contradict myself in this video. I believe that systemic racism is a real thing. We can all agree that racism is a real thing. But I do believe that a lot of so-called black people, black and brown people, especially in ghettos, in these disenfranchised, disadvantaged communities, and I'm one of those people that come from those types of communities, I believe that despite whatever circumstances you are because of the system, whatever it may be, you will be in a much better position if you applied yourself, looked in the mirror, and corrected things that you can control. Right? I do believe that you'll be in a much better position, without a doubt.
2023, though.
You think America's more racist now after the election and re-election of Barack Obama than it was in 1997?
Yes, because of the election of MAGA, Donald Trump.
He keeps making this point about Barack Obama, which is killing me, bro. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Just because they hired somebody that looks like me does not mean that their brain and their policies align in a way in which benefits the people that look like me. And after 8 years in office, I think we can all say that what did Barack Obama do for so-called black people besides give hope? Hope can be enough, sure, but we talking about his policies and the tangible things that he did. Stop going back to this thing about Barack Obama being elected president. Only so-called black president elected out of 45, 46 presidents in the history of America, and the man probably did the least for so-called black people than anybody else, and that's your point? Come on, man, stop that.
100%. Yes.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, how is it, Charlemagne, that Donald Trump got 8% of the black vote in 2016? He got 12% in 2020, a 50% increase. He got 20% of the black male vote in 2020. If MAGA is racist, how do you explain that Donald Trump substantially increased the percentage of black votes the Republican Party got?
Sometimes people make poor
So why are
choices.
you running against Trump then, Mr. Elder?
Yeah,
I'm not running against him. I'm running against Biden Harris. Any one of the Republican nominees we have would be better than what we have right now. I'm not running against him. I'm running to put forth the issues I just now mentioned that I've been talking about for the last few minutes.
I want to ask you about that. After 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges, don't you think it would behoove the Republican Party to move on from Donald Trump?
I think that the voters in the primary will make that decision.
What do you think, though?
I have no problem with I thought Donald Trump did an extraordinary job as president, especially for black people. Best economy ever. He did something about the borders. The people that are most hurt because of porous borders are black people living in the inner city, because most of the illegal aliens have little or no education. They end up living in the inner city. They compete against black people with high school or less for jobs. Mm-hmm. There are about 1 million fewer black people working than who would otherwise be working if it weren't for illegal alien labor. And illegal alien labor, according to a study done by the Civil Rights Commission, puts downward pressure to the tune of almost $2,000 per year on the salaries of black people living in the inner city. And Donald Trump gave us the most secure border we ever had. He also supported school choice. He also did the First Step Act, which allowed about 5,000 mostly black men with long criminal sentences, nonviolent, to have their sentences reduced an average of 70 months per. He pardoned Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion. Even Barack Obama didn't do that. Yeah, he did an extraordinary job for black people.
I think you're innocent until proven guilty, but I feel like President Biden had 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges. President Obama had 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges. Y'all would be telling them that they need to step aside and they shouldn't be running for president.
Facts. There's no debating that. Facts. No debating that. Drop the mic.
Well, I wouldn't vote for Barack Obama or for Joe Biden in any case, no matter whether he had indictments or no indictments. I would vote for tax spend, regulate liberals.
You're a conservative, right? Obviously.
No question.
What initially made you gravitate towards being a conservative?
I think it was my father. My father was a lifelong Republican, and my father always told my brothers and me the following: Democrats want to give you something for nothing. When you're trying to get something for nothing, you almost always end up getting nothing for something. And my dad, I told you about his background. He told my brothers and me that hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. You cannot control the outcome, Larry, but you are 100% in control of the effort. Before you moan or groan about what somebody did or said to you, go to the nearest mirror, look at it, and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? And finally, Charlemagne, my dad told my brothers and me this: no matter how hard you work, how good you are, sooner or later, bad stuff is going to happen to you. How you deal with those bad things will tell your mother and me if we raised a man. I wrote a book about my father's life. It's called Dear Father, Dear Son, 2 Lives, 8 Hours. It's about an 8-hour conversation he and I had, where at the beginning of the conversation, I thought my dad was harsh. I thought he spanked us too often. We had a belt. In those days, from the South, you spank kids. And I thought my dad was way too harsh. And we had an 8-hour conversation, and by the time we ended, my dad got bigger and bigger and bigger, and Larry Elder got smaller and smaller and smaller, and I apologized to him. And it's a book that's changed a lot of people's lives. It's called, as I said, Dear Father, Dear Son, 2 Lives, 8 Hours. The paperback is called A Lot Like Me. Same book, but it's cheaper.
And I agree with that. Everything he just said is what attracted me to a lot of conservative perspectives. One of the things about me, since I've been a kid, is I've been really good at learning from other people's mistakes. They tell you to learn from your own mistakes, but I learned from other people's mistakes. So when I met other children that actually have fathers in their lives, because I didn't grow up with a dad, when I met other children, other people that had like a really big family, they were really big in being family oriented. I cherished those things, and I latched on to the things that I was able to learn from them, and I applied it to my own life. And so this is a great example. So when I met people that speaks like Larry Elder speaks about what his father or maybe his grandfather or people that was before him instilled in him, then I'm learning it from my friends, right? And I've been doing it since I was very, very young. And so that's something I've always cherished, and I do find that attractive about the conservative community. But again, if this was a fight, Larry Elder versus the Breakfast Club, then I don't think it's as big of a knockout punch as a lot of people have painted it, as Larry Elder being the winner. I still take Larry Elder as the winner of this argument or this conversation, whatever you want, or this debate, whatever you want to call it. But I believe that both sides made great points. But I believe this will be an ongoing argument that will never meet in the middle, because they just refuse to acknowledge the great points that each one of them are making. And because they're going to always feel like the point that they're making is going to be undermined by acknowledging that what the other party is saying is a great point as well. And I just don't understand that when you have adults that are making these assertions and being a part of these conversations is just silly to me. Y'all hop in the comment section. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Again, if you notice, he didn't even speak about God. I don't think one time, maybe once in this entire interview did I hear him talk about God. He's talking about conservatives and liberals. He's talking about the left, this, that, and the third. Politicians this, politicians that, policies this and that. But he's not talking about living the life that God told us to live, right? And I believe that's really the biggest problem with all of us as a human race. Right, we've gotten away from God, and it's a shame. And I think that will solve a lot of our problems. Right, y'all. Again, y'all up in the comment section. Y'all give me your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. I really appreciate it. And ask me about my podcast, man.
Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.